I'm an escaped government experiment, Part 5. Written by Elisha O. 12. My fall was much shorter than I expected, and I hit solid ground within a couple of seconds. I wish I could say that I stuck the cool superhero landing that you see in the movies, but I didn't. I instead tumbled and landed on my back. I slowly got up, dusted my clothes off from my fall, and I noticed that I was in a heavily wooded area. Dark green pine trees surrounded me. The trees towered high above me like wooden giants. It was beautiful and almost serene. Yet it felt like there was something dark and wicked hiding in there. "Buck," a familiar voice called out. It was Stan. "I'm over here," I replied, still taking in the scenery. Stan made his way over to me from where he had landed. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "Yeah. Don't let this beauty deceive you. A lot of terrible things have happened in this forest," Stan said grimly. I turned to look at Stan. His face had a look of sorrow on it. I wondered what had happened to him in these woods. "So, where's the Wendigo?" I asked, changing the subject. "I'll show you," Stan replied, pulling out a map. "Right here," Stan said, placing his finger on one place on the map. "It's close by. It's near a broadcast station." "Okay." "I advise not making any contact with people at the broadcast station." Why?" I asked. It's just better that way." "Okay, understood," I said. "You still have the dagger, right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, pulling out the slim box from my bag. "Open it up," Stan said. "Okay," so I did. I flipped up the metal latches on the box to reveal the dagger. It was incredible how beautiful it was. The blade itself was a shimmering black color. The handle was a transparent blue. It seemed to glow, kind of like the pill that I took. I felt almost entranced by its beauty. I could have stared at it for hours. "Earth to Buck," Stan said, breaking me out of my awe. "Yeah," I said. "You know you can't get the job done unless you actually start walking, right?" "Yeah, sorry, I was just admiring the dagger. It's so amazing," I said. "I know how it feels. I had the same reaction when I first laid eyes on it," he said. "So, is there a special area or a spot that I need to stab the Wendigo for it to die faster?" The head or the neck would result in a quicker death for the creature," Stan said. "Okay, got it. Let's go then," Stan said as he led the way. We walked for about 30 minutes through the forest until we came to a road, and that's when we parted ways. Stan told me that all I needed to do was to head down the road until I saw the broadcast station, which wasn't very far from where we were, and then from there I would need to head up into the woods to the left of me and walk until I found the Wendigo, which, more than likely, would find me first. After he briefed me on what I needed to know, we shook hands and we parted ways once again. Stan said that he would meet me at the very spot that we had parted in. I walked for a short while until the broadcast station came into view. It looked like a fire lookout station that I had once seen on a trip to Yellowstone National Park with my foster parents. Of course, it didn't have a large antenna on top of it or security cameras stationed all around the surrounding area. I did my best to keep out of view of the cameras in an effort to avoid causing whoever was monitoring them to come and investigate why there was a man lurking around. Luckily, no one came out to investigate, and I was able to slip into the woods unnoticed. As I made my way through the woods, I decided to stop and arm myself with the dagger. Just as I pulled the dagger out, the sound of a tree branch snapped behind me. I turned around quickly to face the thing that had made the noise. There was nothing there except for a weird-looking tree. Its branches, which grew only at the very top of it, resembled deer antlers. The closer that I looked, the more I realized that it was no tree. It had long limbs that touched the ground. and two large black eyes that seemed to be empty of any life whatsoever. I fully confirmed that it wasn't a tree when it opened its large mouth to reveal thousands of glistening white, razor-sharp teeth. It then let out a guttural roar so powerful that it shook the ground beneath me. I took a few steps back to give myself some room between me and the monster, but it was too late. The Wendigo charged at me with incredible speed. I had no time to run because before I even had a chance to turn, it had already impaled me with its antlers. I expected to feel a tremendous amount of pain in my abdomen, but there was nothing. That's when I remembered the healing factor that I had. I guess that it numbed pain too. So I also found out that the Wendigo had pinned me against a tree with its antlers. It attempted to pull back to finish me off, but its antlers were stuck in the tree. I quickly realized that this was my opportunity to kill this beast and get it over with. Thankfully, I had somehow managed to keep the dagger in my hand. I lifted it high into the air and brought it down with all of the strength that I had. The creature's struggles quickly ended, and its body went limp. I let out a sigh of relief. It was finished. I had killed the monster. Unfortunately, there was a small problem. The monster's antlers were still stuck in the tree. This meant that I couldn't get free because they were still in me too. I began to search for a way to escape when something strange happened. The Wendigo's body began to fade away to ash, kind of like at the end of Infinity Wars when half the Avengers and the universe disappeared into dust. As I watched this incredible phenomenon occur, a strange voice spoke from seemingly nowhere. It sounded a lot like the radio. I turned around to see that it was the radio. But that was impossible, I thought to myself. I had left the radio back at the hotel. Instead of speaking the way that it spoke to me the night of my escape, it just mumbled gibberish and incoherent words that I couldn't understand. Then, just as abruptly as it had appeared, it disappeared, leaving no trace that it had ever been there. Stunned by the radio's sudden appearance and then disappearance, I looked to see where the radio had gone, but I was quickly interrupted by the sound of something hitting the forest floor. I turned my head to see what had made the noise. It was the dagger. It must have fallen out of the Wendigo when it disintegrated. Speaking of which, the Wendigo was now nothing but a pile of dust. When I was free from the antlers that had imprisoned me, my shirt was covered in holes from where the Wendigo had impaled me, but it was also completely soaked in blood. I'm a mess, I said to myself. How am I supposed to clean myself up, I wondered, as I tried to wipe the blood off my shirt and everything suddenly went black. Now, I still don't know exactly what happened to me, but what I do know is that I regained consciousness to the sound of someone asking if I was okay repeatedly. At first, the voice was muffled and distant, but as I began to regain consciousness, the voice became clearer. "Are you okay?" A male voice with a slight country accent said. What happened?" I said groggily. "You fell out of the sky, that's what happened," said the voice. By now, I had full control of my body and my senses. My legs were a bit wobbly, but I was able to get up with the support of a tree. Looking around, I expected to see a man that had just spoken to me. Confused, I scratched my head, wondering who had spoken just seconds ago. But I didn't see anyone. "The way you hit the ground, I thought you were dead for sure," said the voice again. "Who said that?" I exclaimed in complete confusion. "I'm up here," the voice said. I looked up and, to add to my confusion, no one was there. The only thing that was there was a long branch with a single pine cone on it. I shook my head and I wondered who had just spoken when the voice spoke again. "I'm the pine cone, you blockhead." You're the pine cone?" I replied. What, you never seen a talking pine cone before? Well, no, I told it. Oh, well, there's always a first time for everything. Yeah, is there something you wanted to tell me? I asked the pine cone. Oh, well, I was just asking if you were all right. It looks like you hit the ground pretty hard. I mean, your legs were all twisted, plus your shirt is covered in blood, and I thought for sure that you were dead. But you're not, so congratulations on surviving falling out of the sky. Wait. I fell out of the sky? I asked. Yep, you just appeared out of nowhere in midair and made a crash landing on the ground. By the way, how did you survive that? The pinecone asked. Would you believe me if I told you that I'm an escaped government experiment from a different reality that's working with a secret agent to complete extremely dangerous missions to secure my freedom? I asked it. Oh yeah, definitely. I myself may or may not have lived a past life as a human and am now reincarnated into a pinecone, said the pinecone. Okay, you wouldn't happen to know how I could get back to the main road, would you? Well, as a matter of fact, I do. You just head down that way, it said. Which way? I asked it. That way that looks like a giant bulldozer went through it. Oh, you're right. It does look like a giant bulldozer went through that way. Yeah, anyways, keep walking that way until you see a large broadcast station. I've seen it from the main road, I told it. Good, so after you've made it to the station, walk past it, and the main road should be right there. Thanks. Is there anything else that I need to be aware of? I asked the pinecone. Oh, just avoid going off the path and ignore the feeling of being watched, okay? Yeah, okay, got it. Thanks, I said. So I waved goodbye to the pinecone. As I walked down the road, a compelling thought came into my mind. How did that pinecone talk when I saw no mouth for him to speak with? I began to question whether that thing had really communicated with me or if it had been a hallucination. Within a few minutes, I came upon the broadcast station. It looked like it had been to hell and back, with its weathered walls and large scratch marks here and there. I wondered if there was more to this place than met the eye. It didn't look like there was anyone there, but I couldn't be sure. So I had to take every precaution not to be seen. I stealthily crept near the edge of the woods, looking for a way to cross the broadcast station grounds undetected. I finally found what I thought to be a blind spot in the cameras. I slowly stepped out of the woods, making sure not to step on any dry twigs. I was about halfway across the grounds when I heard a large metal door creak open from the metal stairway. I froze in fear, and I turned to see who had opened the door on the metal stairway. It was a woman, probably in her mid-20s. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. To add to that, she was missing an eye. The woman stood there on the metal stairways for a long time, looking into the woods with a sorrowful look on her face. She suddenly turned and stared straight at me. I stared back. A look of shock and horror, but mainly shock, began to form on her face. I decided that my best course of action would be to make a run for it before things went downhill. I ran as fast as I could, and let me tell you, I've never run that fast in my life. It felt like I didn't even touch the ground as I sprinted across the pavement. I made it back to the meeting place in no time at all, and I didn't even feel winded. I looked around in confusion, wondering where Stan was. I then remembered that he never actually set up a specific time for me to meet him. Realizing this, I took a seat under a tree a little way down from the road and pulled out my laptop from my bag. I'm still surprised that it didn't break during the fight with the Wendigo, and I began to write. I wasn't able to write everything that had happened up to that point, because Stan finally showed up. I was barely at the part where we went through the portal, so I saved my work and I ended it there. The rest from that point is pretty much history. We went back through the portal, which felt like being sucked into a giant vacuum. And when we made it back into our reality, the scientist and staff congratulated me on killing the Wendigo. And then finally, Stan drove me back to my hotel room. On the way there, I asked him if the scientist or his company needed the Wendigo's remains, or in this case, ashes. He said that they didn't need the remains because they were completely useless to them. There was nothing that would be valuable to gather the ashes. Once Stan dropped me off back at the hotel, I plopped onto the bed. I wasn't tired at all, but I knew that I needed to get rest so that I could be ready for whatever else Stan had in store for me. But that's it for now. I'll keep you guys updated. So until next time, Buck Middleton.